Tonight, new evacuation orders in Alberta. Wildfires grow as thousands remain displaced. Fire crews exhausted.
The weather is not on our side right now. The fire danger has climbed to extreme.
And bracing for more.
We may be tested, but we'll be up for that. We're going to be ready for that test.
The tight race in Turkey.
This drastic and catastrophic economic situation is going to force many people to want political change.
A pivotal election that could unseat a president after 2 decades. Plus, a fast food family putting mom first.
They didn't want me to worry. They wanted me to take more time off.
Teenage co-workers step up for a new mother.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo. Reporting tonight, Heather Wright.
Good evening. For 2 weeks, crews in Alberta have been battling wildfires which have stretched resources and displaced thousands. Tonight, 89 wildfires are burning in Alberta, nearly a quarter of them out of control. More than 19,000 people have been ordered to leave their homes, an increase from Saturday, but down from 30,000 last week. And while officials say firefighters were able to hold their ground over the weekend, there are fears the peak is yet to come. CTV's Nicole DiDonato with a look at how one community is dealing with the uncertainty.
Where you can see that the fire's hopping and moving to the north yesterday.
Destruction left behind by a wildfire that ripped through Leduc County Saturday.
Luckily, no firefighters were hurt, no homeowners were hurt.
Crews were able to contain the fire burning 3 kilometers west of the town of Devon by Saturday evening. With the high winds and hot temperatures, officials say it could have been much worse.
Not too far north of us here is the North Saskatchewan River, but if the fire gets that strong in the high winds we've had, it could cross the river.
An evacuation order is in effect, impacting a dozen homes. The order doesn't include the nearby town of Devon, but one person there is getting ready to leave just in case.
We put the fifth wheel hitch back in the truck and loaded up some things in the trailer. If we didn't have everything ready, it would have been chaos trying to get all the kids and all the animals.
The mayor of Devon hopes his town will never have to evacuate, but says plans are in place.
Do we have buses lined up? Do we have buildings for them to go to? Do we have a community? And so that's where we're working on.
Officials say the wildfire in Leduc County is believed to be human-caused.
You have to think every time you strike a match, is it your livelihood, your family, your property that you're putting at risk?
It's also prompting a strong message from the fire chief.
It's amazing that even 2 weeks into a province-wide fire ban, people are still thinking that it's not going to affect them and that it's okay to burn their garbage or it's okay to have a bonfire or fire pit. And it's exhausting our firefighters.
Nicole DiDonato, CTV News, Leduc County.
The extreme heat fueling wildfires in Alberta is blanketing much of Western Canada. More than a dozen temperature records have been broken, and air quality is becoming a concern in British Columbia. CTV's Penny Daflos has that story.
In the Fraser Valley, the haze is unmistakable with the mercury 10 degrees above normal for this time of year. Across BC, 17 temperature records fell on Saturday with heat advisories sprawling over much of Western Canada.
It's unusual, the size of it, not really. I think the main thing is that it's happening so early in the season from a meteorological point of view. It's what we generally see in midsummer.
Air quality in Metro Vancouver is deteriorating with ground level ozone levels rising.
Conditions are causing us to be vigilant, watching the air quality monitoring data closely to see if we are going to reach advisory conditions.
Until then, officials consider the health risk to still be low.
It's really continue with your regular activities.
Especially since the spring was so cold and rainy.
It's a nice change. I am enjoying it right now. I think if it were to be consistently this hot, I might start complaining a little bit.
With La Nina shifting to El Nino, weather experts are seeing this record-breaking heat so early in the year as a potential sign of a hot summer ahead.
It definitely raises questions on what's going to happen later in the season.
There's one more day of hot weather ahead of us before the mercury starts to dip a little bit. Environment Canada does warn that the warmer than average weather is likely to continue for several days. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Abbotsford.
Cyclone Mocha slammed the coast of Myanmar today, making landfall as a Category 4 storm, threatening millions in the country and in neighboring Bangladesh. Fierce winds of over 200 kilometers an hour ripped apart homes and knocked over trees. At least 5 people have been killed. Heavy rain is expected to bring flash flooding and landslides as the cyclone moves toward the northwestern and central regions of Myanmar tomorrow. While hundreds of thousands have been evacuated from their homes, so far the storm has spared the densely populated refugee camps in Bangladesh, where more than 1 million Rohingya refugees live. Polls have now closed in Turkey in what's being called a pivotal election, cast by some as a referendum on the country's future. Turkey's president has ruled with an increasingly firm grip for 20 years and is locked in a tight battle with a challenger promising to take the country down a more democratic path. CTV's senior political correspondent Glenn McGregor has more.
President Recep Erdogan cast his ballot in his bid to extend his 20 years of power. One of the developed world's longest-serving leaders facing his toughest challenge yet as voting in Turkiye's presidential election closed. Erdogan drew enormous crowds during the campaign, but earlier polls showed him trailing center-left candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, who represents an alliance of 6 opposition parties. As votes are counted tonight, there is no clear outcome.
Even though the opinion surveys were indicating that Erdogan's vote was quite down, but there were other analyses saying that his core vote was still holding. So therefore, it's not a complete surprise that the vote is very close at the moment.
Erdogan is an autocratic leader domestically, but internationally a pivotal figure, bridging the political divide between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, helping broker a deal with Russia to allow exports of grain from war-torn Ukraine through ports on the Black Sea. But his economic policies have threatened his tenure, rapidly rising inflation and a plummeting currency that he blames on global forces.
So there's a hope that with new leadership, this drastic and catastrophic economic situation that I think is going to force many people to want political change.
Also contentious, his government's slow response to earthquakes in February that killed more than 46,000. Some of the survivors today returning by bus to voting communities devastated by the disaster. Party A or Party B doesn't matter, he says. We were forgotten, all of us, on that day. Preliminary results show Erdogan well ahead of the challenger, but hovering around the 50% majority required to avoid a runoff vote in 2 weeks. And tonight, the mayors of Istanbul and the capital Ankara insisted the opposition has won. Erdogan has promised to institute reforms to make his country more democratic, but observers are concerned that if he loses a runoff, he may not concede power. Heather.
All right, Glenn McGregor in Ottawa tonight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with German and French leaders today, his latest stops on a diplomatic tour aimed at drumming up more support ahead of an anticipated counteroffensive. These meetings come as Ukrainian forces made further gains near the embattled eastern city of Bakhmut, despite a barrage of Russian shelling overnight. CTV's Kristin Ajkte reports.
In Ukraine's Donetsk region, more than 6 people have died, with many more injured from Russian shelling. Reports say one of the victims who lost their life was only 15 years old. A woman was killed right in front of her father, says this man. Russia's defense ministry said 2 of its commanders had been killed in the Battle of Bakhmut, but they will not give up. All attacks of the Ukrainian armed forces were reflected, he added. Reports say Ukrainian forces have now captured 10 Russian positions near the city.
Russia is committing genocide against Ukrainians and occupied territories. They just want to wipe out Ukraine from the map of the planet.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's president traveled to Berlin to meet with Germany's top leaders. The country announced this weekend an almost $4 billion military aid package for Ukraine that includes tanks, anti-aircraft systems, and ammunition. Germany is now second behind the U.S. in providing aid to Ukraine. We will support Ukraine as long as it's necessary, said the German chancellor. Volodymyr Zelensky denied reports of him looking to attack Russian territory using long-range missiles supplied from the UK, adding he doesn't have the men or resources. We are concentrated on the counteroffensive to deoccupy our territories, he said. Receiving a standing ovation, Zelensky accepted an international prize for being a symbol of European unity. Outside, the award brought anger to a small pro-Russian group and cheers from counter-protesters that included a large inflatable of Russia's leader seated in a bath of blood. Zelensky ended the day with a visit to Paris, with French President Emmanuel Macron promising more military support. With all of these fresh pledges of military support from other countries, President Zelensky says he is hopeful that it will keep up the pressure against Russian forces. Heather.
All right, Creason, thanks for this tonight. Here at home, Ottawa continues to face questions about Chinese interference. Today, Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino told CTV's Question Period there may be more so-called Chinese police stations in the country, despite saying last month they'd all been shut down.
What I can tell you is that I am confident that the RCMP have taken concrete action. That doesn't mean that there can't be new foreign interference activities.
Back in March, the RCMP said they were investigating 2 community groups in Montreal that were secretly operating as police stations, spying on dissidents in Canada and funneling information back to Beijing. Mendicino told a parliamentary committee in April those stations had been shut down by police, but reports earlier this month indicated they were still operating as normal. Canada's biggest cemetery in Montreal briefly opened its gates today for Mother's Day for the first time in a month.
I think it's out of control. It's beyond reason how this lasted so long. Enough is enough.
Some of the families, though, say they couldn't visit their loved one's grave because of fallen branches left over from the ice storm. The cemetery closed in January due to an ongoing labor dispute. More than 250 bodies have gone unburied this year because of the standoff. Canadian aid is helping to feed thousands of people in Haiti, but a new wave of extreme violence is now putting the country at risk of famine. CTV's Vanessa Lee on the unprecedented crisis and the urgent call for international help.
Police used tear gas to break up this demonstration as Haitians demand better working conditions and to feel safe again. This factory worker says they rape and beat us on the way to and from work. We need security to be restored. Fear and violence have gripped the Haitian capital, with gangs now in clear control. In some instances, people are fighting back, taking matters into their own hands.
There have been gang members, or presumed gang members, killed by the population. And that's extremely problematic because it's just more violence breeds more violence. My big fear is that the gangs might fight back or seek revenge.
Last month alone, at least 600 people were killed in Port-au-Prince. It's not known exactly how many have been wounded, as so many are terrified to leave their neighborhoods. The fighting near a hospital run by Doctors Without Borders is so intense, it was forced to shut down temporarily in March and has since closed again.
Even if the hospital isn't targeted, could impact, could hit someone. So you don't want to expose people to that. So
Rachel Séguin has just returned from a year in Haiti. As she helped Haitians access medical care, she witnessed one devastating hardship after another. Cholera and shortages of food and fuel are compounding the crisis.
I know I can work and I can do, but I'll get to go home.
Canada believes the best solution involves the Haitian National Police, pledging $100 million in aid to help the country restore law and order.
Of course, I want things to go quicker. I live here, I see people suffering every day.
Do you think Canada should be doing more?
I think everybody needs to be doing more.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights says Haiti needs urgent support from the international community, as he warns against a never-ending cycle of violence. Vanessa Lee, CTV News, Montreal.
Coming up, the award-winning exploration of Indigenous history.
For so long, our stories have been ignored or misrepresented or told by other people.
A Canadian podcast takes home journalism's biggest prize. A Cree Journalist podcast is telling the story of what Indigenous children faced while in residential schools. And for Connie Walker, the story is a personal one. Here's CTV's Donna Sound with tonight's Indigenous Circle.
This is a picture of my dad around the time that he went to St. Michael's.
Telling the story of her father has won Connie Walker some of the highest honors in journalism.
It really has felt like a dream since I found out.
Walker is from the Okomasis First Nation in Saskatchewan. She spent over 20 years as a reporter and host before turning to a personal story in the podcast Stolen, the story of her father who was sexually abused at a residential school. His name was Howard Cameron. He was an RCMP officer who died at the age of 58. This is an excerpt from the podcast, a conversation between Walker and her brother Hal Cameron.
He saw a car swerving on the road and he pulled it over. When he walked up to the window, he recognized the man behind the wheel.
He said one of the priests had abused him in residential school, and he ended up taking him out of the vehicle and beating the out of him.
The gripping podcast delves into stories she didn't even know about her own father and others.
If those were workers of God, I hate to see what the devil would do.
Walker's podcast claimed both the Pulitzer and Peabody, the first time anyone has won the awards in the same year.
For so long, our stories have been ignored or misrepresented or told by other people, and it's just like incredible that now there's finally space for us to tell them.
Walker spent a year going through archives and documenting survivors' stories. St. Michael's was the last residential school to close in Canada. That was in 1996.
This is proof that our stories matter. Indigenous stories matter.
With her awards celebrated on a billboard in Times Square, this is also a story that will be sure to reach new audiences worldwide. Donna Sound, CTV News, Toronto.
A big win for two Canadians today in front of a record-setting crowd at Wembley Stadium. London, Ontario's Jessie Fleming and Toronto's Kadisha Buchanan were part of Chelsea's thrilling 1-0 victory over Manchester United. The win crowns Chelsea as this year's Women's FA Cup champs. More than 77,000 people packed the stadium to watch the match. Still ahead, a fun-sized fleet takes flight. Air enthusiasts return to the sky for a new season. Some high-flying hobbyists are hoping their passion for planes rubs off on a new generation. Aeromodellers have found joy in building and flying planes that look like full-size originals. Here's CTV's Jill Makishon.
At the Winnipeg Headingley Aeromodellers Club, there's a springtime buzz in the air. It's the start of a new flying season, and these pilots are ready at their radio controls.
We do torque rolls and knife edge passes and 4-point rolls, and whatever a real aircraft can do, we can do.
Big aerobatics, and the planes aren't pint-sized either, as large as 20 to 50% the size of the real ones, and each pilot has a favorite.
This is a biplane. It's a model of a German biplane called a Bucher Youngman. The history of aviation really sinks in with me.
Most of these flyers found their passion for planes at a young age, then smaller, more simple. Later moving to these larger gas-powered and electric models, which can travel 100 kilometers per hour and faster. A hobby sport that requires engineering, physics, and math skills.
I like building things and making things, and especially making things fly. There's a very high level of complexity involved, precision.
Each aircraft is registered with Transport Canada. The model pilots must write a test and be licensed to fly, and only at approved flying fields.
We have a lot of money invested in these airplanes. We don't want to lose them, nor do we want to hurt anyone.
But there is concern more recent and restrictive federal flying rules meant to regulate drones might deter younger aeromodelers. Fewer people appear to be taking up the sport. There's hope that changes. There are an estimated 13,000 members across Canada, and many clubs will help train and mentor new pilots. After all, this isn't just about flying, but friendship.
We're a band of brothers. We all have loved the same thing. Sky's the limit. Yeah, literally.
Jill Makishon, CTV News, Winnipeg.
The world has a new oldest dog. Meet Bobby, the Portuguese pooch who just turned 31. That not only makes him the oldest living dog, but the oldest canine ever, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. Bobby's family, of course, threw him a birthday party Saturday with his owner saying the secret to his longevity is the calm, peaceful environment of southern Portugal. If you're wondering, Bobby is a purebred Rafeiro do Alentejo, which is a breed of Portuguese dog trained to guard livestock. After the break, the restaurant workers and a Mother's Day surprise. A second family serving up compassion. A work family at a restaurant in BC is serving up kindness for their work mom. CTV's Adam Sawatsky reports.
Anything else for you?
If you ask Lisa Armstrong the best thing about her job, she'll answer without hesitation.
The guests and the staff make you feel like family?
A fast food family that includes teenage co-workers who are quick to consider Lisa like a mom.
It's always trying to brighten our day, make us laugh.
And she's one of the most caring people.
So you can imagine how they all felt when Lisa announced their family was expanding.
It was very exciting.
Well, Lisa felt very grateful. Being pregnant at work was a breeze. She admits the prospect of taking just 2 weeks off for maternity leave felt stressful.
Because EI only gives you 55% of your income, so I can't go without 55% of my income. So I was going to take 2 weeks off, use my 2 weeks paid vacation that I get as being assistant manager, and then come back to work after that.
It's the sort of plan you have to make when you're the primary breadwinner in your family until things don't go according to plan and your baby arrives 3.5 weeks early.
Definitely scary, but it all worked out.
Well, Declan weighed just 4 pounds 11 ounces when he was born. He's now almost 7 pounds and thriving.
Yeah, he's a keeper.
Lisa's general manager, Jaleese Fisher, visited the pair in hospital before taking them out for a celebratory meal. But then
I told her that I had to stop back at the restaurant because of a renovation issue,
which turned out to be a surprise baby shower organized by Lisa's work family.
The owners made food and made cupcakes. It was really sweet.
And after the teenagers met Declan, they presented Lisa with an envelope full of cash.
$1,011.50 in there. It was almost my full paycheck, so they didn't want me to worry. They wanted me to take more time off.
A group of 8 between the ages of 15 and 17 who donated their paychecks to Lisa.
Blown away. The emotion, just the love that I got from them. I was just felt really loved.
A love her young co-workers say is a reflection of the caring Lisa's always shown them.
We just appreciate her. We care for her. We want to do good for her.
Which is why they gave their work mom this priceless gift of spending 2 more weeks, a month in total, to solely be Declan's mom.
You can't say thank you enough for that.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Mill Bay.
Such a great story, and a happy Mother's Day to all the moms, to the stepmoms, foster moms, mother figures, those trying to become a mom, and those missing their mom. I hope you found a moment for yourself today, and to my mom, I love you. That's it for us tonight. I'm Heather Wright. Sandy will be here tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Have a great week.